Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and call this special meeting to order. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district's attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct or Government Code 551.071, to deliberate regarding real property under 551.072, a prospective gift under 551.073, certain personnel matters under 551.074, security devices or security audits under 551.076, and economic development negotiations under 551.087. If the board meets in closed session, we will announce the particular section under which we will be doing so prior to initiating the closed portion of the meeting. We have a public hearing portion of this meeting. We will now move to the public hearing portion of our meeting. Before we open the floor for any members of the public who wish to address the board regarding the proposed 2024 tax rate, I will ask Dr. Clint Burton, Vice Chancellor, Business and Finance CFO, to provide an overview of the proposal to adopt a 2024 tax rate that exceeds the effective rate. Dr. Burton.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. I'll leave time at the end of this presentation for questions, but feel free to stop me as I go through the presentation. We're going to have a general overview, and then we're going to talk about Blinn's tax rate options and histories. The general overview: there are basically two kinds of taxes that can be levied against the public. And the first one is maintenance and operations. That can only be used to run the operations of the college. And the next is interest and sinking, which requires a vote from the public to pay for bonds that are used for construction. In preparing the tax rate, there were certain elements that the calculations are. The first one is the no new revenue rate. That's the rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as we had last year. Then there's the voter approved rate. The board has discretion to increase from the no new revenue rate all the way up to just shy of the voter approved rate. If the board goes above the voter approved rate, it has to go out for vote to the public. The timeline is on Tuesday, September 1st, we asked the board to consider a proposed rate. Today, we're having a public hearing, and tomorrow the board will vote on to adopt a tax rate. Just to remind the board on certain things about Blinn's finances, 72% of our revenues come from student tuition and fees and auxiliaries, 26% comes from state funding, 2% comes from property taxes. That is the lowest percentage in the state of Texas. Tax rate options and history. This slide here shows 4 options for the board. The first one is to maintain the current rate, which is 0.63. But the one we're talking about today is option number 3, which is the recommended rate, which is just shy of the board approved rate. That would generate $320,000 additional dollars for the operation of Blinn College. Looking at the history, Blinn has a history of never going for the voter approved rate, and most of the time staying with the no new revenue rate. And this is where Blinn compares to other government entities in Washington County. As you can see, and we'll go to the next chart, the bottom red line is Blinn's assessment compared to the other entities in Washington County. Looking at the comparison with community colleges in the state of Texas, you can see Blinn has the lowest rate of all 50 community colleges in the state of Texas. Currently, Blinn is paying in-district $64, out-of-district $123, and the general fee is $80. The annual cost for in-district students is $5,100. For out-of-district, it's $7,300. Cost savings for in-district students is $2,100. Are there any questions?
Would you clarify or What is out of district student?
Now, there's some nuances there, but basically it's someone whose residence is not in Washington County. That is the out of district.
So if they're in College Station, they would, well, you already got it going.
Yeah, yes, sir. But they would be they would be out of district.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to be sure.
And then there's an additional one out of state, which would be an additional fee.
That's even more.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Burton, in the new funding formula that the state has created to fund junior colleges, is it true that they are basically saying a minimum of 5 cents should be charged by the community college to show appropriate contribution from the community towards the community college?
That is my understanding of how that law is being implemented.
And this 0.0421 rate is
still below that, yes,
We're still going
sir.
to be well below that 5 cent
And
requirement.
without going for voter approval, it can conceivably take another 3 to 3.5 years to get us up to the 5%.
And the amount of money that it is costing us from the state of Texas right now to not be at that 5 cent rate, what is that?
And I'm going to ask my staff to keep me honest, but it's about $560,000. Does that seem correct?
531,000.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Looking at state funding under House Bill 8 from last fiscal year to this current fiscal year, because that tax rate is below the 0.05, which is what the state is using in their calculation to determine that base rate, this year alone we lost a little over $530,000 in state funding because our tax rate is not at that 0.05%, it's at the lower rate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Burton, could you talk a little bit about how the Washington County scholarships and that kind of stuff offset some of this cost that may be incurred?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and defer to Mr. Schubert.
Thank you, Trustee Wells, for that question. Great question. We do have lots of scholarships, lots of endowed scholarships all across the college, but one that we specifically use for Washington County is the Washington County Scholarship. And what that does is any student who's a resident of Washington County, once they graduate from high school, they're going to receive, by simply applying for those funds, up to $1,000 a year towards their tuition offset. And as you can see on the screen, the tuition for in-district students is well below the out-of-district. You've already saved $2,100 as an in-district student, and then you're on top of that, you're combining that with the $1,000 Washington County Scholarship, and that is not a need-based scholarship. All that one has to do is apply for it. If you simply submit an application, your dollars will come to you and offset your tuition simply because you're a Washington County resident.
One other question that I had was in regards to the taxes that what we do charge here, what they raise, how much of our actual operations of just our Blinn College do those taxes cover?
The taxes, 100% are used locally here. They don't even begin to cover our operations for the college. The basic plant and operations is around $7 million to operate the college. So the amount we get from locally, which is greatly appreciated, does not cover enough to get us beyond our operations. We have to use.
When you say $7 million, that's locally. That's
locally.
campus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bryan is additional.
So we raise, what is it, $3.5 million on the taxes?
It's around $2
million. Okay, so we're, yeah.
2.4. So
2.4 million. Okay, so we don't even raise enough money to probably pay our electric bill.
Maybe a little bit, but not our electric and water.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, if I can chime in on one thing, a very important thing to note here, just that the trustees remember that by state law, all the property taxes have to be used in the what's called the taxing district. They cannot be spent on any operations outside, in this case, Washington County. So these tax dollars are a direct reinvestment into the Blinn College operations in Washington County, and by law, we cannot spend them on any other campus outside of Washington County.
Question. The taxes are only for operations. We do not
have taxes for the other part.
The interest in sinking, Blinn does not, because that requires a separate voter approval to
Right.
sell bonds and then a separate assessment to pay those bonds.
Okay.
Blinn does not have that. No, sir, no, ma'am.
Does anyone else have any other?
I just think, again, I'm kind of repeating ourselves maybe, but sometimes it's worth repeating. But the building programs that we have accomplished in the last several years have not been at the expense of the taxpayers. I mean, there's been no taxes involved. The tax dollars have gone to the operational side of our budget locally, but as far as what we've spent on building those buildings have been done with reserve and capital funds and
Basically, Mr. Moser, from tuition.
tuition, yeah.
Tuition,
sure,
yes, sir.
Sure.
So this board and Dr. Hensley have figured out how to carve that out of the existing
Right.
budget. Y'all done a good job.
Okay, any other questions from the board for Dr. Burton? Thank you, Dr. Burton. I will now open the public hearing on the proposed 2024 tax rate increase. This public hearing is an opportunity extended to all citizens to address the Board of Trustees regarding the proposed 2024 tax rate increase. If the board has allocated a total of 3 minutes for each presentation, the board requests that speakers show respect for others at all times and reserves the right to halt any speaker who fails to conduct himself or herself in an appropriate manner. As this is a public hearing, the board will not respond to testimony that is delivered and will not make any decisions at this meeting. And I think that we do have one individual that signed up to speak, Ms. Barbara Ross. You may come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Actually, I got a lot of information just from what y'all were talking about. I never really understood exactly where our tax dollars were going. I understand you said that our tax dollars do not fund anything in Bryan College Station. How is that campus funded? Just through tuition only?
Mr. Chairman, I'll respond if you'd like me to.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much for coming and
Sure.
offering your comments. So the vast majority of Blinn's operating funds are from tuition and fees. And so 70-ish% of our operating funds come from those tuition and fees. And so the items that we use and fund those operations and other campuses are the tuition and fee collection. About 26% of our funding comes from state funding, and roughly 2% comes from property taxes. So that 2% is just here in Washington County.
Just
It's
in-
the rest of that all together that goes on a district-wide spending.
I understand, okay. And I hadn't understood that before. I've heard numerous conflicting things through the years that Washington County is, taking the whole burden for Blinn in College Station and the other two campuses, I think Schulenburg and Sealy. And I never did understand why Washington County had to incur those expenses for other counties. But that question's been answered, so that was about, one other question, what is the ratio or percentage of in-county tuition versus out-of-county tuition?
The number of
ratio
students?
Students, yeah.
Okay, so roughly speaking, we have around, this semester, about 17,800 students, roughly, give or take, across all of our campuses, our 13-county service area. Each year, there's about 500 students, give or take, that come from Washington County. So of those 17,800, only about less than 500 come from Washington County.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And that's why we have the Washington County Scholarship, to encourage our local residents to come and those sort of things. And we'd love to have more Washington County students.
Yeah, I've often wondered why more students didn't come to the Blinn campus. I think probably being in the in-crowded A&M is one reason that campus is larger, but I was wondering why we didn't have more students here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think my questions have been answered. I just always had it in my head and no one could answer it before. I appreciate y'all answering them for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, don't believe anyone else signed up for public comment. The Blinn College Board of Trustees will vote on the proposed 2024 tax rate during the regular board meeting on Tuesday, September the 17th, 2024 at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom located at 802 Green Street, third floor, Administration Building. And I think that brings us to the end of the business that we needed to conduct today. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Trustee Benke makes the motion. Trustee Krause seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, we're adjourned. Thank you so much. It's 2:15. Thank you. Thank you. No, yes. There's always open public comment opportunities at the board meeting. So, yeah. I doubt anybody's going to show up for that.